My name is Elena Thorne. I'm 34 years old, and for the last 6 years, I've been a total ghost to the people who brought me into this world. Hit subscribe to join our community of truth tellers. This is a story about betrayal, karma, and the daughter they couldn't ignore. My own sister looked my parents in the eye and told them I'd flunked out of med school to chase some deadbeat into a life of drugs. It was a cold-blooded lie, and that single-hit job cost me my entire family. They didn't just walk away, they erased me. They blocked my number before I could even get a word in. They skipped my residency graduation. They weren't there when I said I do. For 6 long years, I was no one's daughter. Then, last Tuesday at 3 in the morning, the universe decided to settle the score. My sister was rushed into the Level 1 trauma center where I work, bleeding out, unconscious, and fading fast. Trauma team paged the chief of surgery. When the double doors swung open and my mother saw the name stitched into the white coat of the surgeon walking toward her daughter's stretcher, she grabbed my father's arm so hard it left bruises. Before we dive into the wreckage of that night, do me a favor. Hit that like and subscribe. But only if you've ever felt like the black sheep for a crime you didn't commit. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I want to know where you're listening from. Now, let me take you back to the fall of 2018, to a kitchen table in Providence, Rhode Island, and the last time my father ever looked at me with anything resembling pride. Growing up in the Thorne house was like being a background actor in someone else's movie. There were 2 daughters, but only one got top billing. My sister, Chloe, is 4 years older, and she's the kind of person who commands a room. You know the type, loud, charismatic, always the lead in the school play. My parents, Gerald and Martha, salt-of-the-earth middle class, basically worshipped her for it. Dad managed a textile plant. Mom did part-time bookkeeping. They valued 2 things, appearances and obedience. Chloe played that game like a pro. She gave them the perfect daughter act, and they gave her the world. I was the quiet one, the one with her nose in a biology book at Thanksgiving while Chloe held court. I wasn't rebellious, I was just invisible. There's a difference between being forgotten and never being seen in the first place. Like in 8th grade, I made it to the state science fair, the only kid from our school. Same weekend, Chloe had a community theater gig. One guess where my parents went. When I came home with a second-place ribbon, Dad glanced at it and said, "That's nice, Elle." He didn't ask what my project was about. He never did. I told myself it didn't hurt. I poured everything into my grades, figuring if I couldn't be the daughter they loved, I'd be the one they couldn't ignore. For one brief moment, it worked. The day I got into the surgical program at Johns Hopkins, 300 miles away, something shifted. For the first time, my father really looked at me. But I'll get to that. First, you need to see what Chloe did when she realized the spotlight was moving. The acceptance letter came on a Tuesday. Chloe was visiting, 26, and working a fine marketing job in Boston. Fine was Chloe's ceiling, though she'd never admit it. Dad read the letter and his eyebrows went up. "Johns Hopkins," he said like he was tasting the words. "That's a real heavy-hitter school." Then he looked at me. "Maybe you'll make something of yourself after all, Elena." It wasn't a real compliment, but I held on to it like oxygen. Mom called everyone she knew. Dinner, I saw Chloe smiling, but it was the kind of smile that stops at the mouth. Her eyes were calculating. That week, she started calling me more. "How's packing? Who's the roommate?" I thought my sister was finally seeing me. I was feeding her ammunition, every detail, every name, every vulnerability, and I handed it over with a grateful smile. 3rd year of med school is when everything cracked. My roommate and best friend was a woman named Maya. She'd grown up in foster care, no family to speak of, and she was the reason I survived first year. When I called home once during a brutal exam week and Mom said, "Can't talk, Chloe's having a rough day at work," Maya was the one who sat on the floor with me and said, "Their loss. Now get up." Maya was diagnosed with stage 4 liver cancer that August. No family, just me. I went to the dean, explained the situation, and got an approved leave of absence to be her caregiver. I moved into Maya's place, drove her to chemo, held her hand at 3 a.m. when the pain was a beast. I called Chloe to tell her. I don't know why. Maybe I still believed she was a sister. Chloe's voice was like syrup. Oh my God, Elle, I'm so sorry. I won't say a word to Mom and Dad. I know they'd just worry. 3 days later, she nuked my life. Call came at 11 p.m. in the oncology ward. Dad's voice was flat, arctic. Your sister told us everything. The dropping out, the boyfriend, the drugs. I pressed my hand against the wall to steady myself. Dad, what? I'm in a hospital taking care of Maya. Chloe said you'd have a story ready, he replied. Mom got on the line, sobbing. How could you lie to us for a year? The embarrassment. Mom, I have paperwork. I can give you the dean's number. Enough, Dad said. Don't call this house until you're ready to tell the truth. The line went dead. 4 minutes and 12 seconds. That's how long it took them to erase me. 20 minutes later, a text from Chloe. I'm sorry, Elle. I had to tell them. I couldn't keep your secret anymore. She wasn't sorry. She'd just executed a perfect strike and signed it with a broken heart emoji. I was in Baltimore with $50 in my account and I had just become no one's daughter. I tried. I called 14 times in 5 days. Dad blocked me. Mom blocked me. I sent emails with my leave paperwork as a PDF. No response. I mailed a handwritten letter, priority. Came back, returned to sender, unopened. I recognized Mom's handwriting. Called Aunt Sarah, Dad's sister. She called me back 40 minutes later, voice heavy. He told me to stay out of it, sweetheart. He said you've made your bed. I stopped calling on the 6th day. Not because I gave up, but because I realized they had chosen a side a long time ago. Chloe just gave them permission to stop pretending. Maya died on a Sunday morning in December. No one from my family knew. I was the only one in the room when the monitor went flat. I organized a funeral for 6 people. I didn't cry because I'd been crying for 3 months and there was nothing left. That night, I found a note Maya had tucked in my textbook. Finish what you started, Elena. Become the doctor I know you are, and don't you dare let anyone, especially your own blood, tell you who you are. I chose to climb. Not for my parents, but for Maya and for the version of me she believed in. I went back in January. No safety net. I took extra loans, worked research jobs, and ate hospital cafeteria leftovers. Med school doesn't care if you're disowned. So I stopped crying and started working. I graduated on time. No one from Providence came. I matched into a surgical residency at Mercy Rest Medical, a level 1 trauma center in Connecticut. That's where I met Dr. Silas Vance, the chief of surgery, who became the mentor I needed. I met Nathan there, too. He was a civil rights attorney. The first person I told the full story who didn't pity me. We got married in Silas's backyard. 30 guests. Nathan's dad walked me down the aisle. I'd sent an invite to Providence. Came back unopened. Fast forward. I'm 34. I'm the chief of trauma surgery. I have a house, a husband who makes me laugh, and a golden retriever named Hippo. It's a good life, but there's an ache between your ribs where a family is supposed to be. Aunt Sarah still calls every Sunday. She's my thread back. Mom and Dad are healthy, she'd say. Chloe's selling real estate now. I never asked, but I listened. Last week, Sarah's voice was different. Elena, there's something about Chloe. Before she could finish, my pager went off. Trauma activation. It was 3:07 a.m. The screen glowed, level 1. MVC, single female. I was at the hospital in minutes. I ran through the surgical options in my head. I walked into the trauma bay, picked up the iPad, and stopped. Patient, Chloe Thorne. Emergency contact, Gerald Thorne. The world pulled back like a tide. For a few seconds, I wasn't a surgeon. I was that girl on the hospital floor in Baltimore. "Dr. Thorne?" the nurse asked. "You okay?" I looked up. "I'm fine. Prep Bay 2. The ambulance siren wailed closer. Chloe was strapped down, unconscious, bleeding. Behind her came my parents. Mom looked like she'd aged a decade in a bathrobe and mismatched slippers. Dad was in a panic. "That's my daughter," he shouted. The nurse told them to wait, that the chief was handling it. "Get me the chief now." Dad grabbed her arm. I was gowned and gloved, my badge visible. I gave the nurse a look. "Not now." My parents were led away. "She's all we have," I heard my father say. As if I'd never existed. I stepped into the scrub room. 30 seconds. I looked at myself in the mirror, the face of a woman surgically removed from her own family, now asked to save the woman who held the saw. I could have walked out, but Chloe was dying. I'm the best surgeon in this building, and she needed me. I paged my backup. Conflict of interest. Patient is family. If my judgment slips, you take over. Then I pushed through the doors. For 4 hours, I rebuilt what that car wreck tore apart. Ruptured spleen, liver laceration, internal bleeding. My hands were steady. I didn't falter. 6:48 a.m. I placed the final stitch. She was alive. I peeled off my gloves and washed my hands, methodical. I straightened my top and walked toward the waiting room. My parents were sitting there, rigid. I pushed through the doors, badge out. Dr. Elena Thorne, Chief of Trauma Surgery. Dad stood up first. "Doctor, how is she?" "Is Monica?" He stopped. He saw the badge. Then he saw my face. A tremor started in his hands. Mom looked up and let out a sound that wasn't human. Her fingers dug into Dad's arm, leaving bruises. "I'm Dr. Thorne," I said, my voice clinical. "Your daughter sustained a ruptured spleen and a liver laceration. Surgery was successful. She's stable in the ICU." "Elena," Mom whispered. "Oh my God. Elena." I stepped back. Half a step. Polite but firm. She froze. "You're the chief?" Dad asked, his voice like gravel. "But Chloe said she said you were, what exactly?" I asked. I watched his mind try to fix 5 years of lies in 5 seconds. "We thought you dropped out," Mom cried. "She told us you were homeless." "None of it was true," I said, my voice level. "I sent emails. I sent a letter you returned unopened. Called 14 times. You told Aunt Sarah to stay out of it." Dad stared at the floor. He had nothing. Facts don't need volume. Just then, my head nurse walked in. "Dr. Thorne, the Physician of the Year Committee sends their congratulations on tonight's outcome." Mom looked at me, ruined. "Physician of the Year?" "It's nothing," I said, turning to leave. "I have to check post-op vitals." I walked down the corridor, spine straight. I didn't look back, but I heard Mom's voice. "Gerald, what have we done?" And I heard my father saying absolutely nothing. Silence can be a heavy thing. For my father, it was the only honest thing he had left after the floor of his world dropped out from under him. 4 hours later, I was back in ICU room 6. The monitor chirped a steady rhythm, and the morning sun was cutting through the blinds in sharp angles. I walked in for the standard post-op check, vitals, drains, the usual routine, except nothing about this was normal. Chloe's eyes were open. They were glassy and unfocused from the morphine, but they were open. She blinked at the ceiling, then at the 4-pole before her gaze finally tracked sideways to me. She squinted, struggling to read my badge. Then she read it again. The color drained from her face faster than I've ever seen in a trauma bay. "Elena." Her voice sounded like someone had rubbed sandpaper on her vocal cords. "Good morning, Chloe." "I'm your attending surgeon," I said. I kept my voice flat and professional. "You had a ruptured spleen and a grade 4 liver laceration. The surgery went well." You're going to make a full recovery. You're a doctor? It wasn't a question, it was a reckoning. I'm the chief of this department. Have been for 2 years. I watched the emotions flicker across her face like a fast-forwarded movie. Confusion, disbelief, then pure fear. But then there it was, the look I'd seen my entire life. That quick spark behind the eyes, calculation. Even now, with my stitches literally holding her internal organs together, Chloe was trying to figure out how to spin this. Elena, listen. I can explain. You don't need to explain a thing to me, I said, nodding toward the glass door. My parents were standing in the hallway looking wrecked. You need to explain it to them. I updated her chart and walked out without another word. I didn't stay to hear the fireworks, but the entire ICU floor heard them anyway. The truth isn't soundproof. Now, you might be wondering what a sister like that would say when she's caught in the ultimate lie. If it were me, I'd hope for a confession, but I know Chloe. People like her don't just fold, they pivot. They try to find a way to make their villainy look like a tragic mistake. The moment they stepped inside, Chloe started sobbing. Big, heaving gasps that pulled at her stitches and made her heart monitor spike. Mom, Dad, you have to believe me. I was just scared for her. I didn't mean for it to go this far. My father stood at the foot of the bed, his voice barely a whisper. Chloe, Elena is a surgeon. She's the chief of trauma at this hospital. I didn't know, Chloe wailed. She sent letters, Chloe. Emails. She called 14 times, my mother said, her voice sounding hollow. Is that true? She's exaggerating. You know how she is. Aunt Sarah tried to tell us. Dad's voice finally cracked. It wasn't sadness. It was the sound of a man realizing the foundation of his life was built on sand. 2 years ago, Sarah said you were in residency. You told us Sarah was just trying to cause drama. What's the real story, Chloe? Mom was screaming now right there in the ICU. What is the truth? Chloe, backed into a corner with IVs in her arms and my sutures in her gut, did what she always does. She went on the attack. Fine. She's a doctor. Good for her. But she still abandoned us. She never called. We blocked her number, Chloe. Dad shouted, his knuckles white as he gripped the bed rail. Because you told us to. The monitor beeped. The 4 dripped. And for the first time in 35 years, Chloe Thorne had no script. Aunt Sarah walked into the ICU at 9:45 that morning. I'd called her from the scrub room, not to use her as a weapon, but because she deserved to know her niece was alive. But Sarah showed up with receipts. 5 years of silence had turned her into a woman with a long memory and a filing system. She didn't hug anyone. She stood in the middle of that room and said, I've been waiting 5 years for this and I'm not waiting another minute. She pulled out her phone. She had a folder labeled Elena Proof. She showed them screenshots of every email I'd sent in those first desperate weeks. PDF of my leave of absence from Hopkins, signed and stamped. My graduation photo, me in a cap and gown holding my diploma with Aunt Sarah as the only family member in the frame. Mom took the phone with trembling hands. And here, Sarah said, swiping to a text thread from 4 years ago. It was from Chloe. Sarah read it aloud. Don't tell Mom and Dad about Elena's residency. It'll just confuse them. They're finally at peace. The room went dead silent. Chloe stared at the ceiling, her jaw set. She had finally run out of places to hide. You told me to keep quiet for the sake of the family, Sarah said, looking at Chloe. But this family hasn't had peace. It's had a 5-year blackout. She turned to my parents. And you too, you let this happen because loving Chloe's lie was easier than fighting for Elena's truth. Mom sank into a chair, scrolling through my old emails. Her lips moved as she read the last one I'd sent the night before my graduation. Mom, I wish you were here. I'm still your daughter. I never stopped. My mother doubled over. It wasn't even a cry, it was the sound of a woman meeting a mistake she could never undo. My father stood at the window with his back to them, his shoulders shaking. Sarah told me later it was the first time she'd seen him cry in 60 years. "You missed her wedding, Gerald," Sarah whispered. Marcus's father walked her down the aisle. "Do you get it now?" Dad didn't turn around. He just said 4 words. "What have we done?" I came back that afternoon at the end of my shift. 22 hours since the pager woke me up. My parents were still there. Mom stood up the second I walked in, her eyes swollen shut from crying. "Elena, baby. I'm so sorry." I held up my hand. Gently but firm. "I hear you. And I believe you're sorry. But sorry is a starting place, not a finish line. I need time." Dad turned from the window. He looked like he'd aged 5 years since breakfast. "We want to make this right. Then you need to understand something," I said. I kept my voice even. This wasn't anger anymore, it was just clarity. "I'm not the girl you sent away. I'm not the girl who begged you to listen from 300 miles away. I built a whole life without you. If you want to be part of it, it happens on my terms. Not Chloe's. Mine." Dad just nodded. A small, devastated nod. I looked at Chloe. She was watching me. "When you're recovered," I told her, "we're going to have a real conversation. But not today. Today, you're just my patient." I walked out. Fine straight. I wasn't closing the door forever, but I was the one holding the keys now. 2 weeks later, Chloe was discharged. I chose the spot for our talk, a coffee shop in Middletown. Neutral ground. Marcus came along and sat at a separate table keeping an eye on things. Chloe walked in looking hollowed out. The confidence she usually wore like expensive perfume was gone. She sat down and stared at her coffee. "I'm not going to yell," I started. "I just want to know why." The silence stretched until the barista called a name. Finally, she spoke. "Because you were going to be everything I wasn't. And I couldn't handle it." "That's honest," I said. "The first honest thing you've said to me in a decade." "I also called your med school twice," she whispered. "I tried to get them to revoke your leave. I told them you faked the papers." I stared at her, the blood running cold in my veins. "The dean didn't listen to you, Chloe. He believed the truth." "I'm not cutting you out," I told her, leaning back. "But here are the conditions. You will send an email to every single family member you lied to, all 47 of them. You will correct every story. No excuses. No fluff." She did it. She sent the email on a Wednesday night. It was 3 paragraphs of pure, ugly truth. The responses were like a tidal wave. My grandmother, Nana Rose, called me crying. "I'm 89 years old and I've never been lied to so thoroughly by my own blood. Elena, forgive me." Nobody canceled Chloe, but the trust she'd spent 35 years building was gone. No one punished her, they just stopped believing her. And for a performer, that's a death sentence. My parents started counseling in February. Mom took to it fast. She realized she'd been enabling through silence for years because it was easier than standing up to Dad. Dad struggled more. His pride was a load-bearing wall and it was hard to knock down. But he stayed in the chair. He listened. 3 weeks in, Mom mailed me a letter. "I failed you," she wrote. "Not just when I believed the lie, but every time I chose peace over fairness because I wasn't brave enough to fight for you." I put that letter in the drawer where I keep the things that matter. Right next to Maya's note. Progress is slow. I meet Chloe for coffee once a month. It's stiff. It's awkward. But it's real. She carries a 7-inch scar on her abdomen now. Every time she looks in the mirror, she'll see the mark left by the sister she tried to erase. The sister who held a scalpel and chose her oath over her anger. I'm sitting in my office at East Side General now. There's a new photo on my desk. It's from 3 weeks ago. Mom and Dad standing on my front porch looking a little lost. Dad's hands are in his pockets. Mom is trying too hard to smile. It's imperfect. It's awkward. It's real. If you're watching this and you see yourself in my story, whether you're the one who was silenced or the one who did the silencing, listen to me. The truth doesn't expire. You can't rush it and you can't outrun it. I didn't get revenge on my sister. I became someone who didn't need it. Sunday morning. First week of February. Light snow falling outside the kitchen window. The kind that doesn't stick but makes everything look like it's being gently forgiven. I'm making French toast. Marcus is grinding coffee beans, singing off key to something on the radio. Hippo is stationed under the table, optimistic about crumbs. The doorbell rings. I wipe my hands on a towel and open the front door. Mom and Dad standing on the porch in their winter coats. Dad is holding a bottle of orange juice like he's not sure what to do with his hands. Mom has a tin of homemade cookies. Her shortbread. The one she used to make for every school event of Chloe's and none of mine. "Hi," Mom says, nervous and hopeful. "Come in," I say. Coffee is almost ready. Dad steps inside and looks around the kitchen like he's cataloging everything. The house he's never been in, the life he almost never knew existed. He clears his throat. "Can I help with anything?" I look at him. My father standing in my kitchen for the first time, asking permission to be useful. "You can set the table, Dad." He nods and goes to the cabinet I point to. He takes out plates and counts them. 1, 2, 3, 4. He sets them down one by one carefully like they might break if he's not gentle. Marcus hands him coffee. Mom hugs me at the stove. Not a dramatic movie hug, just a quiet one. Arms around me and forehead against my shoulder. No words. Holding on. Hippo thumps his tail. Snow falls outside. The French toast sizzles. It's not perfect. It's not the childhood I deserved or the reconciliation movies promise. But it's real. And real is more than I had for a very long time. My name is Dr. Elena Thorne. I'm 34 years old and I am finally, slowly, carefully letting myself be someone's daughter again. 4 plates. It's a start. If this story resonated with you, if it made you think about your own family, your own boundaries, or someone you've lost and found, leave me a comment. Tell me, what would you have done? Would you have opened that door? And if you want more stories like this, check the description for one I think you'll love just as much. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next time.